Hello and a very warm welcome to another edition of Talking Germany, the show where we do just that. And my guest today is a man who dreams of changing the world, no less, who wants to go down in history, in art history. So here, who is he? He is right here. Let me introduce you to Gerd Harry Lybke. He's already very amused by my introduction. Thank you very much for joining us today on Talking Germany. OK, now, this gentleman here is often described as the most important gallerist in Germany, and that is pretty impressive.
Germany?
In Germany. Well, one second, pipe down. And he's often described as the most important gallerist here in Germany. And that is, as I was trying to say, very important these days, because German art is hot. It's very, very hot. And Gerd Harry Lybke represents some of the most talked about artists here in Germany. You were butting in a little bit there as I was trying to talk. Some people describe you as the most important gallerist in Germany, and you're not happy with that. You think you're more important still.
Yeah, that's not... Yeah, genau.
It's not good enough for you. Listen. We've got a problem. Some, in the English language, in Germany, we say the word gallerist, and most people know what you're talking about. In the English language, the word gallerist, a lot of our viewers won't know what a gallerist does. What does a gallerist do?
Yeah, ein Galerist.
There are various types of gallerists, of course. Gallerists as dealers that buy objects and sell them again.
Die Sachen einkaufen, wieder verkaufen, oder?
Traditional art dealer.
Ja, Art Dealer, ne? Das bin ich nicht.
I'm not an art dealer. I'm more the sort of gallerist that looks after a group of artists and early on in their career embarks on a long journey with them. And we try to remain very consistent and long-lasting.
Sehr kontinuierlich zu sein und langfristig.
What does that mean exactly? What do you do on a day-to-day basis with them?
Man versucht einfach...
You just try to either leave the artist in the position or put him in it, where he can do the things to which he is most suited. It gets difficult when an artist starts to do things which are outside of his reality and is no longer himself. So the important thing is that the artist's work reflects what he really is. His identity, his biography, has to shine out from his work. It all has to do with the work itself.
Alles das ist etwas, was mit dem Werk selbst zu tun hat.
Gerd Harry Lybke, before we went into that report, you were telling me that you see your job as helping the artist to be able to present their art and focus on their art. That all sounded very nice. And then when that report started, you said what it is really all about is killing the other artists.
That's true.
That sounds very like...
No, that's true. Both is true.
Both is true.
Auf der einen Seite ist man natürlich derjenige, der...
On the one hand, you're something like a ferryman. The profession has to do with getting people from one side to the other. In this case, carrying the artist and an idea across the river to another idea, carrying what's good a bit further. Of course, you have to watch out that there aren't 15 other people doing what you're doing when you get to the other side. So it's about transporting art and about business. I'm an entrepreneur.
Auf der anderen Seite ist das ein Geschäft. Also ich bin Unternehmer.
So while you're talking your own artists up, you're talking the other artists down?
Nein.
It doesn't go that far?
Die anderen Künstler, wenn du
when you start naming other artists, you're already doing something wrong.
Das ist schon was falsch.
Okay. I mentioned earlier, it's often been said about you that you have an instinct for the avant-garde. What is the avant-garde?
Schwierig zu sagen, auf jeden Fall.
It's hard to say. In any case, they are people who do not adhere to the norm. They are always people who know what is going on. They know that the bicycle has already been invented, so they don't make the mistake of trying to do it again, because they're smart enough to know the history. And they are people who have the knowledge and that certain intellectual ability artists need to make something. That means involving themselves and transforming whatever they're working on such that it's reflected by their biography and infused by their personality. And if they are real personalities, true individuals, then their artwork is individual too and cannot be compared with other works.
Eine individuelle Position auch und ist nicht zu vergleichen mit anderen Arbeiten.
It's often said about you that in your relationship with the artist, you wait a long time before you identify an artist as somebody who you want to take under your wing. You were just telling me that the business is a cut and thrust business, is a kill or be killed business. If you wait, your rivals will move in.
Nee,
doesn't work like that.
Nee.
I have time. If it's a good artist, he or she will know in 5 years' time that I am the best gallerist.
You've talked about these artists' personalities. I'd just like to ask you, you have a stable of artists, you have a group of artists who you represent. Give me an idea of what they stand for.
Also, man muss sagen,
first off, I must say that I work for the artist. I offer a service. I'm a businessman. I have a team of 18 people, all women, who actually make the business work.
You've only got women, that's amazing.
That I can sit here and talk to you, even though we're preparing exhibitions for Tim Eitel in Berlin and Birgit Brenner in Leipzig, is only because I have teams there that are doing precisely what has to be done.
OK, let's speed things up, though. The question was...
I know.
Yeah, no, your artists, what do they stand for? What's the ideology? What's the message?
The message, also erstmal der Background ist der.
First of all, the background is there, and the artists know they can rely on this background. And the artists also know that they have their own individual positions, and that they can make mistakes, and they can gain a new sense of reality. Even if they're very famous, they know what they did not do well and what they did do well. They can judge that and stop themselves on certain paths and go down new ones where they can find risks again.
Und einen neuen Weg machen, wieder ins Risiko zu gehen.
Okay,
Man muss sich immer wieder...
We'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. Give me 3 words to describe Leipzig.
Leipzig.
Weltstadt.
Cosmopolitan, sexy, trading town.
Handelsstadt.
Leipzig, yeah. East Germany was a closed society.
Yeah.
No ifs or buts, it was a closed society. But the message we're getting from the report is that Leipzig was a sort of a more open city.
About the fairs.
Yeah, there was the big trade fairs that were going on there. Yeah?
Derzeit konnte man einfach als jemand...
In those days it was relatively easy for someone to come from the old West Germany to Leipzig without much visa trouble. And people did it a lot. The Eigen Art Gallery was already going privately underground, and it helped to get it known, because people could travel there and have a look.
How many people did you have coming to the gallery at that time?
We opened up every weekend because nobody knew how long it would last, and there were always about 400 people there.
Okay. And these days, and the tradition was there back then, this is the tradition you're talking about, Leipzig has this feel for... It's a city that we associate with underground art, with cutting-edge art and music. Why Leipzig? Just explain why Leipzig. There's a real tradition there. There are roots.
Auf jeden Fall gibt's dort eine Tradition in
There is definitely a tradition in Leipzig, because it's been a trading centre since the year 1200. In Leipzig, the trader comes in from somewhere and he has to feel at home there, because there are lots of other towns with trade fairs. So the people of Leipzig have known since 1200 that they must do everything to make every guest feel at home. And when he comes back again, he has to feel like a Leipziger himself. It's just not the same as in other big cities, where you've got to live there for 15 generations before you're considered to be a native. It's the other way round in Leipzig. When you go there twice, you're already a citizen. And when you leave, you'll never say anything bad about Leipzig again, because it's your own city. That's how merchants carried Leipzig's good reputation further and further out into the world.
OK, and then along came this guy called Gerd Harry Lybke, and he dreamt up a phrase to describe something that was going on in Leipzig, to describe the art scene in Leipzig. He called it the New Leipzig School.
No, it wasn't me. It was the press, the media.
It's interesting, because sometimes it said that it was you, and sometimes it said it's the media.
Also, es ist so. Natürlich habe ich die Künstler.
Well, of course, I did present the artists that were involved, but none of the journalists had the courage to really remember the names of these few individuals and get things going. Because if you name names, you also have to know what they do and what the differences between them or the similarities are. But everyone gets it if you have just one concept, like the New Leipzig School, which works easily in English too. It didn't come from me, though. It was more the laziness of some journalists who preferred to say New Leipzig School, so they didn't have to remember who it was about. For us, it became a vehicle to get us faster from A to B. You pack everything in, you take the quick road, you get to B, and then you unpack Neo Rauch, Matthias Weicher, David Schell, Tim Eitel, and Uwe Kowski. That wasn't possible at the start because people couldn't remember all the names.
I've tried to find out a little bit about sort of what the broad message is of the school of artists that you have put out there, that you represent. Well, let me ask you that quality, but
high quality.
Yeah, but for you as a person, for you as an individual,
okay,
what has this art, now beyond business, what has this art meant? What has it done for you intellectually or sensually?
Okay, für mich persönlich ist es natürlich so.
Personally, it is a chance to live several lives. Normally, you only get one, don't you? It begins, you try to shape it, and then it ends sometime. If you're an actor or a gallerist in the way I do it, and live it, then you can accompany the artists with their roles. As you perform your service, you can go along with their development. So you're not just taking part in several lives and the projection of those lives. You're taking part in the way these people develop themselves. For me, it's most important that once an artist has mastered something, he must throw it overboard and create something new, tread new ground, even if it is mined and out of bounds. That's what makes it fun.
Was vielleicht vermint ist, wo gar keiner hin darf. Dann macht's Spaß.
Which city is the capital of German art, Berlin or Leipzig?
Oh, schwer zu sagen.
That's difficult to say. More international artists live in Berlin, and that's important for the production of art. As for the next generation of German artists, that's probably Leipzig.
Die nächste Generation von deutschen Künstlern wahrscheinlich Leipzig.
Okay. Let's move on to Berlin. Berlin is a place that likes to present itself, for sure, as an international art metropolis. It's an image that, of course, enhances the appeal of the city.
Art is everywhere in Berlin. There are some 20,000 artists from all over the world living and working here. The Norwegian-Danish art duo Elmgreen and Dragset moved to the German capital 13 years ago.
A lot of artists are living here, a lot of our colleagues are living here because it has a more relaxed atmosphere.
The Berlin art boom of the early 90s was helped along by Klaus Biesenbach. He set up the Kunstwerke Exhibition Center and the Berlin Biennale.
It's still more or less affordable for younger artists to get started here, to work and to produce.
But one thing Berlin doesn't have is money. There are few collectors with serious cash to spend. Still, the capital's galleries are thriving, showing over 3,000 exhibitions a year with more than 5,000 artists. It works because buyers come in from further afield.
Here's where you do your shows, here's where you're based, but here's not where you do your business.
Internationally renowned locations like Berlin's Museum Island, the Hamburger Bahnhof, or the Neue Nationalgalerie draw crowds of tourists, but they don't tend to buy artworks. The art scene is in any case changing in Berlin, with many artists leaving the more trendy districts in favor of lower-cost areas that still have a more alternative feel. The relatively low prices here mean Berlin is still attractive for artists.
Groups of younger artists, they don't want to go to Berlin because that's what everybody's done already the last 15 years. But what happens often is that they try somewhere else and come to Berlin anyway after a couple of years.
So the city's fascination for artists remains 20 years after the fall of the wall.
Gerd Harry Lybke, they say a new gallery opens every week in Berlin.
Ja, gut.
Is that true?
Certainly.
Yeah?
Ja.
I read here's a sentence from a British newspaper that I thought was very interesting, yeah? The Berlin art scene is one of those things that everyone has heard of, with new galleries opening every week, but nobody can really explain. Can you explain it?
Na gut, warum das niemand wirklich
The reason nobody can figure it out is because there's always something new happening. Things that pop up and seem contemporary disappear again. Nothing really gets established in a hurry. Not in life, and certainly not in a city like Berlin that's so dynamic and in evolution. That's what makes it so good for artists. You can try things out, you can take risks as a young artist, be famous for 3 days, and then disappear again. Then you can reappear somewhere else as an artist or anything else. In Berlin, you have a real chance to take control of your own life without it costing you much at all.
So the question of it's about money, it's about rent.
Anyone who is young moves to Berlin.
Ja.
Tell me more. Yeah, for the people out there.
Ja, weil du dann, wenn du nach Berlin ziehst, kannst
When you come to Berlin, firstly you can act independently without having this dreaded pyramid of power. Nobody has to die to make room for you. You can just start where you want to. And you find out very quickly if you can do what you think you can do, because you get the chance to try it out. You don't have to wait for it.
It's very decentralised, the Berlin art scene.
Ja.
Yes, possibly, that's right.
Ja, das stimmt.
It's interesting, I was...
Berlin an sich sind kleine Dörfer.
But Berlin is really just a collection of small villages.
Das ist übrigens auch schön. Das ist übrigens
That reminds me of another idea. Most people live outside of big cities. They come from towns or villages. And that's why we all love Berlin. It's a bit like returning to your childhood. Because wherever you are in Berlin, it's all just a little village where you feel safe and warm, like at home. You just need to take a few steps and you're home. New York devours you. It abuses you for its own ends. Berlin needs you. That's the difference.
Und Berlin braucht dich. Das ist der Unterschied.
You don't own any art.
Nee.
Why not?
Kunst muss in Bewegung bleiben.
Art must remain in motion, and that's also important for the business. As soon as I start to buy something, say at Tim Eitel's new exhibition, then I'm taking a work out of this exhibition for my own collection. Then the best work is gone, because that's the one I would take. And everyone else can only take what's left. So they are financing my collecting craze. That's no good. If a gallerist does that, the collectors may as well turn around and go without so much as a goodbye. I want to be the one who decides what I buy.
Ich will eigentlich derjenige sein, der die Entscheidung hat, was kauft.
Interesting. So, there's this story that you're a very Spartan person, that you're a bit of a nomad, that you travel very lightly. Is all that true as well?
Ja.
Yeah? All that is true? Yeah?
Ja. Ich bin nicht so sehr Konsum.
Yes, I'm not so dependent on consuming, apart from suits and the like. That's got something to do with East Germany, when I had one of my father's old suits. He was a bouncer in a bar in Bremen with his first wife. Some of the gentlemen who couldn't pay had to pay with their suits and walk home naked. And I got to keep one of the suits. Well, he kept it and gave it to me, and I wore it. And that suit kept the police off my back.
This is fascinating stuff. This is a fascinating guy. Gerd Harry Lybke has been a great guest. If you've enjoyed his company as much as I have, come back next week. Just...